The Elephant Road. We are up to chapter 6. Wylan, wake up! His father sounded cross. Blearily, Wylan opened his eyes. What were you doing up here on your own? Of course, his father didn't wait for an answer. He was already halfway down the ladder. Come on, he said. Dangu's going to take your mother into Tura to sell her oranges, and she wants your help. Wylan sat on the motorbike in front of his uncle, almost on top of the handlebars, with Relip sandwiched in front of him. Don't hold me so tight, Relip whined. Stop complaining, Relip mother told him. Wylan has to hold you tight or you'll fall off. Mother climbed on the bike behind her brother and just in front of several huge baskets of oranges that were strapped onto the back. You okay, sis? Dengu asked her. I think so, Mother said. Are you sure we tied the baskets on tightly? Well, Dengu laughed, there's only one way to find out. They shot off down the track. Relip and Wylan both screamed. Even Mother squealed like a girl. No, of course, was fast asleep on her back. It was a lovely morning, sunny and cool, without a cloud in the sky, and it was fun to be riding down the red dirt road instead of walking. They passed Auntie Em, Salmi, and Sal Jack, and a basketful of tapioca roots that were they were taking to sell beside the main road. Mother made Dengu stop, and they tried to work out a way of fitting Auntie Em on the bike too, but her basket was just too big, and she waved them off, smiling. Dengu was a skillful rider, and he steered around the many ruts and bumps, the places where the rains would turn the road into a riverbed in a few weeks' time. In less than an hour, they were on the tarmac road, speeding along with the wind in their hair. It was already very busy in town. Tuk-tuks and cars wove in and out of people on the streets, blowing their horns. The pavements were crowded with people selling things, fruits and vegetables, plastic bowls, pots, combs, ropes, scissors, and baby clothes. The shops were just opening. A big hardware shop with huge metal pots strung up to the ceiling, and little snack shops hung with strings of brightly colored packets like streamers. Dengu dropped them by the taxi stand. Where are you going now, little brother? Mother asked him. Business to attend. See you later. Dengu grinned, but Mother didn't smile back. Outside the hotel, they found a short stretch of pavement free, and they set up their orange stall. Mother spread a clean piece of cloth on the concrete, and Wylan showed Relip how to pile up the oranges in neat pyramids. Mother bargained with every single customer, determined to get the very best price she could. Before his voice had gone funny, Wylan had been an excellent salesman, always finding new ways to say how good his mother's oranges were, describing the tastes and smells of each different variety. Now he didn't dare say a word, and Mother was teaching Relip how to be her helper instead. She saw Wylan watching them, and she smiled at him sadly. Here, Wylan, she said, handing him a few coins. Go and buy us some puri. That's a deep-fried flatbread. Wylan wove his way to the puri stand. The street was full of people, ladies struggling with big bags of shopping, skinny water carriers with their funny hip-wiggling walk. The ones that wiggled most were the best and never spilled a single drop. The little strings of giggling children, men in sarongs with enormous cardboard boxes balanced on their heads. Everyone was moving unusually slowly because of a huge black 4x4 car was parked in the road, and they all had to go around it. People flowed past the vehicle like water round a rock. Wylan was just a few meters away, wondering who could possibly own such a monster, when one of the rear doors opened and Uncle Dengu stepped out. But Dengu looked odd somehow. He was stooping like a beggar, and he spoke very fast to someone in the dark interior of the car. His eyes darted about like something hunted. Wylan knew at once that his uncle didn't want to be seen, so Wylan turned away quickly, but it was too late. He heard the car door slam, and a moment later, Dengu had struggled through the crowd to reach him. He put his hand on his shoulder. And here's a picture of Wylan looking in the crowd, and there's his uncle getting out of the big car. And you could see all the things happening in the street. Hello, nephew, Dungu smiled, the sort of smile that a tiger might give a deer before eating it. You won't tell anyone what you just saw, will you? Even if you could, he added cruelly, I like to keep my business quiet. He pushed some paper money into Wyland's hands. Go buy some puri, okay? Then Dengu was gone, and so was the big black car. When he got back to the orange stall, Wyland gave his puri to Relip. But you love puri, Mother explained. What's the matter, Wyland? Wyland shook his head. Even with a proper voice, he could not have described how things were churning around inside him. Dengu's horrible tiger smile and the money burning like poison in his pocket. It had taken his appetite right away. By the late afternoon, Mother had sold all her oranges and her bag jingled with the money she had made. Usually, on good market days like this, she'd buy them a little box of sweets to share with the girls, Auntie M's twins, when they got home. But this time, they walked past the sweet shop without stopping. Sorry, boys, I have to save my money today. We need to pay for our lanterns. The village lanterns were solar powered. Batme and Cyball, who lived next door to Wyland's family, rented them out and charged them from solar panels on their roof. No one liked to make Batme and Cyball wait for their money, as they were getting old and frail. Wyland thought of the paper money in his pocket. He could give it to his mother, but how would he explain where it came from? Dengu picked them up at the crossroads, the bottom of the hill. He looked like himself again. He smiled at Wyland as if nothing had happened. Without the heavy baskets of oranges to slow them down, they zoomed along very, very fast. Relip loved it, but Mother didn't and asked Dengu to please slow down. When his uncle just laughed and ignored her, Wyland wished that he had enough voice to shout at Dengu and to tell him what to do. Amara was busy with news when they got home. Uncle Jax's cousin had come up on his ancient moped to bring the news. A herd of 7 elephants had trampled several houses in the village in the night. This village, called Gorapunji, was like Umamara. It stood on the Elephant's Road, only on the other side of the river. So Wyland knew at once which elephants were involved. I'm sorry for you, Father said to his cousin, but it is a blessing no one was hurt. Yes, replied his cousin, but a baby elephant strangled itself in the big new fence on the edge of the village. At least that's one less of those wicked beasts. There's nothing wicked about elephants, Grandpa frowned. Only humans can be wicked. Jax's cousin opened his mouth like a dead fish, but Mother chimed in to stop an argument. Tell us about the new fence, she said. What does Gorapunji need a big fence for? Wyland could guess what had happened. A fence had blocked the elephant's road, stopping them from traveling peacefully between their palaces. No wonder the calf had gotten tangled up. Now it would never learn how to use its trunk properly. The fence was around the new coal depot in Gorapunji, Dax's cousin explained. A businessman is paying us money to allow him to build a depot. It will bring jobs. It was obvious that the cousin was very proud of Gorapunji's new venture, but now Mother's face showed disapproval. Times are hard, said Dax's cousin grumpily, seeing their expressions. Our fields don't yield like they used to, and we have to make money somehow. Huh, Grandpa grunted. I'm sure my youngest son would agree with you, eh, Dengu? But Dengu was nowhere to be seen. They could hear his motorcycle heading down the track toward the tarmac road. Chapter 7. The weeds and stumps on the plots dried out in the sun and were burnt to put some of their new goodness back into the soil. Almost everyone helped with the planting of the new crops. Chile and eggplant seeds were sowed first, planted the moment that the fires died down. Relip, the twins, and Wyland got their hands covered in ash. Salmi drew tiger stripes on Relip's arms with her sooty fingers, and they all ran back up the track to the village, with Relip the tiger roaring behind them. That was the last day of the holidays. Wyland went back to school, walking down the track every morning to the schoolhouse in the next village. Most of the time he walked alone because the other children, like Toka and Tika, set off to catch the bus to high school in town an hour earlier and the younger children didn't go to school yet. Wyland rather liked his solitary walk. That means he's walking alone. It was part of his day when he didn't have to concentrate on speaking. And he didn't have to concentrate at all. Two things, speaking and concentrating, that had been so hard for him since his sudden growth spurt. At school, he struggled to think in a straight line and make his voice work to answer the teacher's questions or to talk to the other children. Even playtime was a strain, but on his walk, he could relax and let his brain flit about as it wanted. He didn't have to worry about speaking to anyone. He listened to the sounds of the forest, the birds and the insects. He watched the breeze moving through the leaves. When the rains came, he noticed the changes every day as the water and the warmth of the sun brought everything back to life. And there's a picture of him walking to school. The hum plots began to sprout with little shoots of gourds and pumpkin and maize and millet and spinach and tapioca. The scent of all kinds of orange blossom was everywhere, like a cloth of perfume woven from many different threads. Wyland shut his eyes and breathed in the air. In the valley, the rice paddies turned brightest green. Hens and their fluffy chicks scratched in the yard, and mother's cow gave birth to a beautiful calf. The grown-ups were busy in the fields, and after school and at weekends, the children helped out. It was a lot of hard work, but there was always time to rest. When it rained so hard that all you could do was take shelter and watch the dripping, or in the evening, watch the smoke of the fire. That is when you rested. His parents read and reread Keelip and Ruhop's letters by the lantern light. Nona got her first tooth. The year went on as usual, and yet, more and more, Wyland got the feeling that underneath, things weren't quite right. There was a report in a local newspaper about elephants damaging crops near villages on the other side of the river. It was, the report said, happening more and more, and people were taking matters into their own hands. Someone got revenge and killed an elephant. Father sighed when he read the news. Maybe Dengu's right. Maybe wild elephants should just be in zoos. Grandpa told him he was talking nonsense. If someone built a wall in the middle of Umamara, he said, what would you do? You'd knock the wall down, wouldn't you? It's not the same, Father said. Yes, it is, said Grandpa. It's exactly the same. No one heard a word from Dengu. In fact, no one even mentioned him. Almost every night, Mother and Father whispered on until Wyland gave up waiting for them to stop and fell asleep. Grandpa began to become grumpy nearly all the time. One evening, Doc's cousin came to visit and talked about how the fence that the elephants had destroyed had been mended now, and how the villagers were thinking of selling more land and turning another plot into a coal depot. Grandpa shut the door of his house. He was so upset he didn't come out for dinner, even though Mother had cooked his favorite meal, pork and ginger. Every time Wyland went into town, the lorries, that's a bus, loaded with coal could be seen going up and down the main road, beeping their horns and overtaking everyone on blind corners. When the weather took a turn for the worse, with rain so heavy that it washed away soils and seeds, and the fields had to be replanted again, people began to get fevers and chills. Little Nono started to cough, a tiny pathetic sound that made the whole family sad. In school, they were learning about volcanoes and how the lava boiled secretly, building up and building up. Home began to feel like that. Wyland realized he was waiting for an eruption. Chapter 8. It came in the middle of the night. Wyland woke to the sound of loud voices and the flash of torches beaming. Those are flashlights. He and Relip leapt out of bed. Father was already dressed and standing in the yard with Dax and Rengu, Toka and Tika and Nambat, their neighbor's grown-up son. Rain had ran down their faces and dripped off their chins in the torchlight. Elephants, panted Nambat. Yes, in the rice paddy by the bend in the track. How many? Asked Father. They looked at each other. Not sure. At least 3. They could ruin the whole crop. And it's our biggest patty, Rengu added. Grandpa stomped across the yard through the puddles. Elephants! What are they doing here this time of year? He said. Stealing our rice crop, said Father crossly. Let's get down there. Not you, Achu. I don't want you outside in this rain. Grandpa opened his mouth to protest and then shut his mouth again. No one argued with Father when he was organizing things. Relip, go inside with your mother and Nono, Father barked. Wyland, get dressed and come with us. You're big enough now to be useful. Wyland's heart leapt. Only grown men got to help chase animals out of the crops. He walked down the track with the others, glowing with pride, hardly noticing the rain that was soaking him to the skin. Just before they reached the paddy field, they put out their torches, turn their flashlights, and moved silently between the betel trees. And a betel tree is a skinny palm tree. It has nuts on it. Clouds shut out the moonlight, and it was as dark as a cave. But the rumbling of the elephants' talk and the squelch of their feet in the paddies could be heard over the pattering rain and the plinking frogs. If we startle them now, breathed Dox, they'll just run further into the paddy and do more damage. But if we chase them the other way, they could panic and run straight through the village. Okay, said Father, here's what we'll do. Dax, Rengu, you and I will go around to the other edge of the field very quietly. The rest will stay here and climb into trees with torches. We will make some noise and push the elephant this way, towards the plantation, but not so far that they panic. They'll have to cross the stream, and the moment they do so, the youngsters will flash lights and bang pots. That should be enough to send them back down the valley to the river where they're supposed to be. It's that wretched coal depot, mumbled Dax. That's what sent them this way. It was hard climbing a palm trunk that had no branches, with no light, and a saucepan strung around your neck, but it had to be done. Staying at ground level with a herd of possibly very cross, that means angry, elephants coming towards you wasn't a good idea. Wyland clung to his tree and strained his eyes in the darkness. The trunk's really wet, whispered Tika. I'm slipping. Stop moaning, Toka said. Keep a lookout. I can't see anything, Tika complained. There, said Nambat. I see lights on the other side of the field. Through the leaves and the rain, torchlights flashed, and the sound of saucepans being beaten rang out like gongs. I can't see the elephants. How will we know? Now. The elephants had shot across the paddy field much faster than anyone expected. They had crossed the stream before the boys had spotted their huge shapes, darker than darkness, crashing through the vegetation at the foot of their tree. At once, the boys flicked on their torches and began to make as much noise as they could. To be able to bang his saucepan drum, Wyland had to let go of the tree with his right arm, and instantly he slipped. He dug the sole of his feet into the tree trunk, pressing so hard to stop himself from sliding further that his leg muscles screamed. Directly below him, the elephants trumpeted in alarm and smashed into the betel trees, which are the palm trees, the ones he's in. One collided with Wyland's tree, making him lose his grip. So here's a picture of him clinging to the palm tree, and the elephants are right below him. And he's got to bang pots while still holding on to the trunk at the same time. He slipped, scraping the skin off his ankles and shins, and landed on the ground. His flailing torch came to rest, shining straight ahead, lighting up the huge, body-crushing legs of an elephant. It was so close that Wyland could have reached out and touched it. He shrank against the tree like a snail, curling itself into a shell, expecting to be trampled to nothingness at any moment. The elephant's legs swung toward him in the torchlight, and Wyland screamed. It was the loudest sound he had managed to make for more than a year. The elephant turned and ran. A moment later, the crashing of the herd's retreat faded down the river valley. Father's plan had worked. Nambat, Toka, and Tika slapped Wyland on the back. It was your scream that did it. I didn't think you could make a sound that loud, Wyland. Wyland tried to say, I didn't think so either. but I and didn't came out like a growl, and either came out like a squeak higher than a mouse's, so he just laughed instead. Father, Docs, and the others sloshed their way through the swollen stream and joined the boys. I don't know what you youngsters are smiling about, said Dax gloomily. It looks like we won't be eating much rice this winter. So the elephants destroy the rice fields. All right, so our next chapter is chapter 9. I'll read that next time. And then there's another one called Walking with Bear that we have too in the library. But you'll have to look that one on your own.